Welcome to our Down to Finance podcast by Future Finance Group. My name is Amie Tennant, and today we are joined by Sarah, one of our mortgage brokers.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah. And we have a very special guest in the house, Olivia from First Class Legal.
Hi, guys.
Welcome, Liv.
Thank you.
And today we're going to talk about all things that a conveyancer does.
Yeah, so I'll get started straight into it. I guess, can you explain to our listeners what your role entails being a conveyancer?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know what a conveyancer is.
I know.
I mean, often we speak to first home buyers and they have no idea what we do or didn't even know they needed to engage a conveyancer. So our responsibility, on paper is technically transferring a certificate of title, so a property title, from the seller's into the purchaser's name. So it sounds quite simple, but there is a lot involved in that.
Yeah.
Anyone who's bought or sold property before will know there's a lot that can go wrong and a lot involved in the transaction. So our job is really to be that support system for the buyer or the seller to take them through, the whole process from even putting their property on the market right the way through to the electronic settlement.
Yeah, so it's both sides. It's, you guys will do your contracts and Section 32s for your vendor clients, and then you'll also help with the property transaction for the purchaser as well.
Yeah, we do both sides of it. I think it's about a 50-50 split in terms of kind of what we do, sale and purchase. We also, do a related party transfer if you're adding a partner or a spouse to a title and that sort of thing as well, but mainly just the sale and purchases.
Yeah, cool.
Excellent. And Liv, how soon as a vendor that would be selling or a purchaser that's looking at making an offer, how soon should they get in contact with a conveyancer?
As soon as possible, to be honest. And depending on the client's goals or what they want to do, we can help them along with you guys, obviously, make a plan and kind of map it out. People come to us once the contract's signed and they've already bought a property, and by then it's a little bit tricky to kind of negotiate any terms or extend things out. Whereas if they get in touch with us early on and say, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to be, we can help them, plan, let's put the property on the market at this time, let's buy it this time, and work it out that way. So it's never too early. We don't charge clients for getting in touch with us and asking a couple of questions. We're more than happy to kind of get them on board early, get that contact, because navigating the property market and being in touch with different agents and all that sort of thing, you do feel a little bit lost. So it's good to have an expert in you guys as well, but also us that they can call and just say, hey, silly question, and then they can kind of bounce ideas off us. So it's never too soon.
Yeah. And so we might just hone in on, say, the vendors, so people that are selling, right? So when we talk about getting in touch with you as early on in their selling journey, we're referring to clients that haven't yet actually nominated a particular sales agent, but they can actually contact you guys and get started with their Section 32. And with a Section 32, what exactly is your role? What do you do? What do you order? How long does it approximately take?
Yeah. I could do literally a whole podcast on Section 32. They're not that exciting, but they're very involved.
Long, yes.
So I think to answer your question, we can be engaged before any sales agent. We can prepare a contract with just a blank spot at where the agent details goes, and you can fill that in later, or we can put that in later for you. But it's probably one of the most important steps in selling a property, because there's a lot of legislation, especially in Victoria, about disclosure as a seller. And broadly speaking, you pretty much have to disclose everything about a property. So we get in touch with the client, we take those instructions, we learn what there is to learn about the property, and we can kind of guide them then on what needs to be included. So have you done building works in the last few years? Is there asbestos at the property? Are you aware of any fencing issues? All those sort of things that may not even come up with conversations with agents. Yeah. We ask those nitty-gritty questions and then disclose what we have to make sure that once we get a signed contract, that's binding and our sellers are protected.
Yeah, and nothing's going to come falling down at the 11th hour because of a missed piece of 100%. Information. Okay, so that's from the selling side. And then as a purchaser, obviously most of our audience can be in their first home buyer's journey. So really starting out, obviously starting to engage and obviously building building up their savings and things like that. If they do get to a point where they're pre-approved and they want to make an offer, a lot of, I guess, first home buyers, obviously they get that, rose-colored glasses on, and they get that super excited feeling in their stomach where they just want to jump ahead. And obviously some real estate agents, can take advantage of that situation where they're like, okay, let's sign up an unconditional offer. Let's get the deal done. Let's settle in 30 days. And
that makes me cringe too.
And nothing's been verified.
Yes.
So I think obviously for those types of, purchasers that are super keen to make an offer, what's your process there?
Yeah, I think there's a few elements when it comes to first home buyers. I mean, we've all been there. I've been there myself, and I do this for a living, and I know how scary it is anyway, just going into that process and kind of not knowing where to go. I think my main advice would be just remember, although the real estate agents most of the time are amazing, they are working for the seller.
Yes.
At the end of the day. So a lot of the time agents will be receiving a percentage of whatever purchase price you pay. So it's just important to have that in the back of your mind, because they do get a cut at the end of the day. So you've got to make sure that, the sellers are acting in their own best interest, but you've got to be acting in your own best interest. So take your time. Agents are always going to put pressure on you to sign things quickly. Again, getting in touch with us early means we can arm you with conditions that you might even include in your offer. If you find something you fall in love with, which we've all been there, you could always put in a condition in that offer to say, subject to my solicitor's review.
Yeah.
And, we get that the next week. We review it within a couple of days, and if you're not happy, you can end it there, and you're none worse off.
Because I think even I find with a lot of my clients, whether even for not just first home buyers, even, upgraders or investors and stuff, they don't realise that they can come to you before signing anything, sending you a copy of the contract and you reviewing it and then coming back. Like, for instance, I remember when I bought my house last year, like your office straight away, just one little thing where I bought my house, you aren't allowed to have cats, which is fine. But like, those sorts of things that could be detrimental for someone that has cats and loves cats. Like, but when they've gone and looked at their house, fallen in love with the house, they don't realise that,
and the
cats is probably a really silly example. But
they're not going to tell you that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's just, cats are probably a very silly example, but
it's just that
in
area,
that contract, that
contract,
like it lists all the ins and outs, like what the body corporate is, what those sort of costs are gonna, so that you're making a informed decision.
Yeah,
you're aware of all the, red flags and the
and when it's like one of the most scariest things that you do throughout your journey in life,
transaction.
And your buyers have saved so much money, and they're waiting
Worked
to make
hard.
This one move. You don't want them to buy something like you say, Sarah, and have this condition or these things hidden in the contract,
and
that
you find out when it's too late.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's our job, to make sure you're armed with all that info.
But that's a huge one that I'd want to point out to people, that that's get the contract looked at before you start even making offers.
In the Section 32 perusal before signing anything. And I mean, you guys do an amazing job at being able to deliver the review, as quickly as you possibly can, because we are in obviously a fast-paced industry. So, sometimes time is of the essence. So I know they do have, an escalation process, and if they can do it in 1 or 2 days, they try to deliver to that. But I guess obviously trying to be on the front foot and give yourself as much peace of mind as possible, like having that Section 32 reviewed, being armed with all the information then and there, and then being able to build your offer around certain special conditions and
or changing
like
the wording in a contract and things like that.
Because similar to when an agent's acting for a seller, we look at a contract and that's prepared by a seller's solicitor. So all of those terms are on in their benefit, really. So by giving it to us and us weighing that up, we might be able to get you something back. Can we make sure the seller has to have the appliances in working order on settlement day? Can we make sure that the property has to be professionally cleaned? And these are things first home buyers would probably just assume would happen, but without us pointing it out and giving them that guidance. Unfortunately, we do see clients be a bit disappointed on settlement day and say, oh, the oven's not working, it's filthy, no one's cleaned this, no one's mowed the lawn.
There's nothing worse.
Yeah. And as a first-time buyer, it's an exciting experience. You want to move in and you want to be excited. And to deal with those little things, it's disappointing. But there's also obviously major things as well that we can pick up in the contract, like illegal building works or all those sort of things that would detrimentally affect you wanting to buy. So yeah.
And at the end of the day, you certainly don't want to be like saving for, 2 or 3 years to have your most exciting step in life turn into something that can be your worst
huge
nightmare.
headache.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe could we just talk about some of the red flags that you might have seen over, your journey as a conveyancer and just something that could, spark a bit of interest by the audience?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the big things we find is building works, to be honest, especially through COVID. Everyone was at home. They're looking outside. Oh, a deck would look good there. Let's do that on the weekend. Let's put up a pergola. Let's do a shed, all that sort of thing. So great, makes it very sellable. The agents love it. But a lot of the time it hasn't been permitted. And councils, this is very, as we said at the start, very general. But a lot of the time you need a permit for most things. So, and if you haven't got one of them and you're buying that property and there's been no permits issued, you take on that risk, whether or not it was done 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 50 years ago. Illegal building works, there's not a statutory time frame for that.
So it's not like a 7-year thing. No. Why did I think that there was a 7-year?
So good question.
Yeah.
So 7 years is a common misconception. But the 7-year disclosure is actually just under owner-builder work done in the last 7 years.
Right.
So if you've done building work like the deck or like the pergola in the last 7 years, you need to get what's called an owner-builder report. So the inspector will come out, take the photos, all that sort of thing, as well as the owner-builder report for that, let's say, illegal deck and pergola. We'd also be putting in a disclosure to any purchasers to say, this was done without a permit, you accept it as it is.
Sure.
But if that 7 years passes, you no longer need the owner-builder report, but you still need that condition.
You still need that condition.
Yeah, so there's no time frame
because
on that
I think something like 7 years was ringing a bell in my head as well. Okay.
Everyone thinks
and
that.
Tying that back to say when you're filling in your paperwork and one of the questions is, do you want to receive title insurance? What is that about in connection with all of that?
Yeah, I get this question all the time.
Great question, and we love title insurance. I took it out myself when I bought my property. I recommend it to everyone pretty much. So title insurance, not a plug, but they do a great job. They basically cover you as a purchaser for any illegal building works that were done before you bought the property. So this is probably a tip as well to the listeners if you do think that there's been works done at a property without a permit. Firstly, call us so we can kind of have a chat about it. But I wouldn't, if it was me, I wouldn't be calling the council to check that.
Yeah.
Because if you can verify that the works were done without a permit and you take out title insurance, you have to disclose it. And if you make a claim later on because the council's come and told you to take it down, the first thing the title insurance company do is ask for a copy of our conveyancing file. And if they can see on there that, the council told us it was done without a permit and we proceeded anyway, you're not covered. You're not covered. So, it depends on the scale of work. If they've done a little deck, you might be better off not calling the council just to check if that's been permitted. If you're worried the whole thing's been done without permits, I'd be definitely checking that
absolutely.
case. Yeah, but that's something we see all the time with purchasers, and they have to weigh up the risk. Is it worth calling them and checking? Because if they haven't got a permit issued and council, you're tipping them off, if they issue a building notice, even before settlement, it's actually on the purchaser to comply with that. So it falls back to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it really is like a process where you want to try and be as involved in getting your advice before you jump the gun and make any decisions. Like you really want to lean in on your conveyancer's knowledge. If there is something that's identified, you want to get your feedback first.
Yeah. 100%. We had a situation, a couple of years ago where a client bought a property and there was a garage kind of turned into a bedroom bathroom situation. So someone had just put in basically like a little granny flat out the back.
Oh, yes.
And when it had been advertised, as that bedroom and bathroom being included as an extra bedroom bathroom.
Yeah, of course.
They made inquiries with the council. Council said, no, actually this wasn't permitted.
Yeah.
And it actually then meant as a purchaser, it was almost in our favor a little bit, because we could actually have a little bit of leverage there against the seller. And we said, well, you guys advertised it as this.
Yeah.
It's actually not permitted.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually going to either terminate the contract or we're going to ask for money off. And the clients ended up getting about 60 or 70 grand off the purchase price.
Yeah.
Because they were absorbing that risk of the illegal building works. So it goes both ways. But again, we wouldn't recommend clients just doing that themselves, because you don't know the long-term effects.
Get your
of it.
guidance first.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I just want to point out is that that isn't a conversation that like our clients have with the real estate agent. That is completely handed over to you guys as the experts. And then you liaise with the vendor's conveyancer on the other side.
Yeah, not
and then
through
the conversation is between the two conveyancers rather than purchaser, real estate agent that obviously
the
has,
middleman.
you know, the
agents
vendor's best interest at heart. So you're getting like a transparent, you know, agreement made.
Yeah. And I mean, the agents are great and they're awesome to lean on when you need to quickly reach out to the other side, or just can they call the seller. But when it comes to that discussion, negotiation, formalizing things, it's between us and the other side.
Yeah.
So,
and in black and white, not just over the
writing,
phone.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that's also an important point, you know, to have a solicitor ready to go for those situations.
Absolutely.
You know, we often get the question, oh, but can I just hire a conveyancer? And you can, but as soon as things get a little bit prickly or, you know, contentious, they have to refer that file straight off to a lawyer anyway. So it's important, I think, and I would never go anywhere else, but it's important to have a lawyer or a law firm in your corner, because they've got that expertise and those professionals
and
ready
you guys
to
do
go.
it.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We're
Yeah.
mostly solicitors. There's a few conveyancers, but mostly solicitors.
And I think, just the benefits of obviously using first class legal. I know for like myself, I've obviously brought and sold properties, and, you know, the service that you guys deliver is like, you know, I obviously, we work on behalf of so many clients on so many different, you know, levels and different states and everything like that. And I think I say to all my clients all the time, like the difference of using a good conveyancing company to say a conveyancing company that's like .com.au,
one
where
band.
you're doing a, you know, communication online. It's not if everything goes well. It's like, who do you have in the corner when something doesn't go right? And look, like I would say probably 98% of files go through perfectly fine and smooth and everything like that. But if and when, you know, a problem does arise, you want these guys in your corner.
Yeah.
And I guess what is your biggest point of difference? Like the fact that you do have multiple solicitors in your office daily that have that expertise.
I think, there's a few. I mean, I think it comes down to as well getting in touch early. We can help you plan. We can help make that process as easy as we can for you. But I think our main point of difference, and it's been something that we've really been focusing on, especially the last few years, is just the client-centric approach. You know, we care so much about our clients.
It's not just transactional.
It's not. And we do thousands of transactions a year, but we make sure that our clients know who their person is. They can call them on the phone at any time. It's not like you're going to be talking to assistants or reception. You know, you're always going to have contact with your one file handler.
And I might just point out that they answer their phone, which I feel like is really important.
Agreed.
Because when you are going through a situation where you want someone to speak to, and there are things that arise throughout the home loan journey where we need to refer back to the conveyancer for, you know, tiny little things like a nomination form. They've signed the contract, Amie, tenant and or
name,
nominee, and at the 11th hour the loan's about to get unconditional and we need the nomination form, and they're right there and they answer and they get it to us in half an hour, and that just makes it so much more, you know, easier for everybody. But if you're liaising with, you know, a .com.au conveyancer, it does sometimes make it really difficult if you're waiting 3 or 4 days for something that you urgently need. So,
well, I think as well, you know, we strive and we actually quality assurance all of our team on this as well, but settling on the right day. So I think as a firm, we're sitting at about 98% settle on the right day. So we actually get reports from PEXA, which is where all the settlements happen, as to how many roll over, and we're at about 98%.
Yeah,
we're
that's
also,
impressive.
yeah, it's something we're really proud of, because, you know, the worst thing is getting to settlement day and going, oh, your bank's not ready.
Yeah.
Like, this is stuff we could have picked up a long time ago if it gets to that. So that's super important. But just the quality and the customer side of it, we really do care, and we survey all of our clients at the end of our files anonymously. And I think we're sitting at about 90 plus in terms of satisfaction, and the industry average for a law firm is about 30 or 40.
Yeah.
So it's quite different in the sense that you are dealing with a really big firm. You know, we're top 3 in Victoria and I think 7th in Australia in terms of volume, but it's about having that connection still with the client and holding their hand and answering their silly questions. They're not just a number for us. It really is about their experience.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Liv, for coming in today and talking to us.
Always so
I know
good.
our audience will be really grateful for all of that advice, and we really hope we can have you back
Of course. Thanks for having
on the
me.
podcast. And thanks, Cez, for sitting in. And
Pleasure.
we look forward to delivering another podcast over the coming days. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just remember to keep in mind, these podcasts are just general advice. And if you are after something more customized, reach out to your financial advisor, or you can reach out to us and we'd be more than happy to help.